Forget mansions completely. Today, we're going underground to see 25 insanely luxurious hidden homes worldwide. Let's start with the OG of underground flexing.
The Underground House, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Back in 1978, Avon Cosmetics millionaire Gerard "Jerry" Henderson built a 5,000 square foot home sitting inside a 15,000 square foot bunker 26 feet below a totally normal-looking Las Vegas suburb. And I mean, it's decked out. Pool, 2 hot tubs, a putting green, a dance floor, a barbecue that vents through a fake tree trunk on the surface, and murals painted around a fake yard so convincing you'd forget you're underground. He wasn't playing around either. This man was so scared of nuclear war, he built himself 2 of these things. Henderson lived there full-time until he died in 1983. The house has changed hands a bunch of times since. A buyer paid $1.15 million for it in 2014, and by the mid-2020s, it was being marketed for millions more. Still one of the most famous underground homes on Earth. And here's the kicker. From the street, all you see is a completely unremarkable ranch-style house with a few extra air conditioning units in the yard. No hint that an entire mansion is sitting beneath your feet. The Henderson Underground House, Boulder, Colorado. Before Vegas, Henderson built himself a practice run. In 1964, on a mountain property near Boulder, he constructed a fully underground home, complete with a lighting system that simulated sunrise and sunset. He was so obsessed with survival, he sponsored an underground home exhibit at the 1965 World's Fair. After he passed, the Colorado property sold in 1988 to the Sacred Mountain Ashram, who actually dug the exterior walls free and added windows. So technically, this luxury bunker doesn't fully exist in its original hidden form anymore, but it's the blueprint for everything that came after it. Villa Valls, Switzerland. Okay, this one is architecture porn. Villa Valls sits inside a hillside in the Swiss village of Valls, home of the famous Therme Valls spa. You can't even see it from outside. The only way in is through an old wooden barn down a 22-meter tunnel carved straight through the mountain. Inside, it opens into a circular courtyard cut into the slope, with huge glass walls looking out over the valley. Bedrooms have little sleeping platforms and reading nooks tucked into the concrete. Built by architects Bjarne Mastenbrock and Christian Mueller and finished in 2009, it's actually rentable as a holiday home, going for a few €1,000 a week. A literal secret palace in the Alps. And because it's largely invisible from the hillside above, the local council actually approved a strikingly modern build in a village famous for strict traditional planning rules. The earth did all the talking. Malator, Wales, the Teletubby House. Locals call this the Teletubby House for obvious reasons once you see it. Built in 1998 by architecture firm Future Systems for former MP Bob Marshall Andrews and his wife, it sits on a former Army barracks site in Pembrokeshire Coast National Park, a place where strict rules forbade visible construction. So the architects just buried it. Grass roof, curved organic shape, and from above, you genuinely cannot tell there's a house there at all. Inside, colorful pods divide up the living space, and the whole thing looks out over St. Bride's Bay. It proved you could sneak a strikingly modern home past even the toughest planning laws. Just put it under the hill. To this day, hikers can walk right across the roof without ever realizing there's a family living underneath their boots. Survival Condo Project, Kansas. This one used to be a nuclear missile. Seriously, it's a converted Atlas F missile silo, originally built to survive a 20-kiloton blast within half a mile. Entrepreneur Larry Hall bought it in 2008 for around $300,000 and turned it into a 15-story luxury condo complex 200 feet underground with walls over 9 feet thick. Inside, a swimming pool, a rock climbing wall, a movie theater, a shooting range, a hydroponic farm, even a dog park. Units have gone for anywhere from $1.5 million for a half floor to over $4 million for a penthouse. Cash only, because no bank will finance a doomsday condo. Hall is reportedly developing a second silo nearby, too. One resident was quoted saying a comparable apartment in New York would have cost just as much per square foot, except this one comes with a nuclear-hardened ceiling. Dutch Mountain House, Netherlands. In a nature reserve in Huizen, Netherlands, design studio De New Generation basically gave a family their own private hill. Completed in 2011, half the house is buried into an artificial mound that camouflages it and insulates it at the same time, while the other half opens up with huge glass walls. Inside, the decor is delightfully weird. An old car with the engine ripped out functions as a bookshelf, and the staircase is literally built from skateboards. It's playful, sustainable, and proves underground doesn't have to be serious and sterile. The glass front folds around the living spaces so the family gets a full-width terrace looking out over the fields, while the buried side quietly does all the heavy lifting on energy bills. Earth House Estate, Lattenstrasse, Switzerland. This isn't one home, it's a whole neighborhood of them. Swiss architect Peter Vetsch, who's built 70-plus earth houses in his career, designed 9 separate homes here, grouped around a small artificial lake with the entrances tucked discreetly to the side. They're built using sprayed concrete shells covered in recycled glass insulation and then a thick blanket of real earth, so residents can literally grow grass or gardens on their own roofs. It's basically an entire suburb where every single house is invisible from a distance.
Edgeland House, Austin, Texas. Designed by Bercy Chen Studio and completed in 2012, Edgeland House sits 7 feet below ground on a former industrial brownfield site along the Colorado River, reinterpreting the ancient Native American pit house. It uses the earth as natural insulation, plus a green roof and a smart pool tied into the geothermal system. It's now a genuinely famous Airbnb. Demi Lovato has reportedly stayed there, and it even showed up on Selling Sunset. Proof that underground and Instagrammable are not mutually exclusive. The architects even reintroduced dozens of native plant species around the property, turning a polluted industrial lot into a working ecosystem again. Number 9. Coober Pedi's Underground Dugouts, Australia. Welcome to the opal capital of the world, where more than half the town lives underground. Coober Pedy in South Australia gets brutally hot, so residents carve their homes, called dugouts, straight into the sandstone hills, keeping a naturally steady, cool temperature year-round. One of the most famous is Faye's Underground Home, started over 60 years ago as a single-room dugout by a mail truck driver, then expanded by hand over a decade by Faye Naylor and 2 friends using nothing but picks and shovels. Today there are underground churches, underground hotels, even an underground golf course played at night with glowing balls. It's not just houses, it's an entire underground civilization. And since the digging often started as opal mining in the first place, some homeowners have literally found gemstones while carving out a new bedroom closet.
Number 10. The Oppidum, Czech Republic. If Coober Pedy is underground living for everyone, the Oppidum is underground living for literally no one but billionaires. Built originally as a Cold War fallout shelter in the 1980s and bought by entrepreneur Jakub Zamrazil in 2013, this thing is enormous. Reported at around 323,000 square feet, carved into a limestone mountain in the Czech countryside. It's got a spa, swimming pool, cinema, art gallery, library, medical facilities, and living quarters that rival 5-star hotel suites, complete with virtual windows simulating outside views. It's marketed as the largest private bunker on the planet, and to even learn more, you need a security clearance code. This is not a house you casually stumble into. From the air, the whole compound is designed to look like nothing more than an ordinary administrative building. The ultimate flex is not even looking like you have money.
Number 11. Vivos X-Point Europa 1. Near the village of Rothenstein in Germany sits a former Soviet Cold War fortress that's been reborn as possibly the most exclusive real estate on Earth. Vivos Europa 1 spans over 23,000 square meters of blast-proof underground space, plus more than 3 miles of tunnels. Each family gets a private 2,500 square foot shell they design themselves. Think marble, polished wood, private pools, home theaters, even wine cellars, styled after mega yacht interiors. Prices reportedly start around 2 million euros just for the empty shell, before you even build it out. There's a shared underground garden with simulated sunlight too, because apparently even billionaires need a bit of fake nature.
Number 12. Gary Neville's unbuilt underground eco-mansion, England. Here's a twist.
not every underground dream mansion actually gets built. Former footballer Gary Neville got planning permission around 2011 for an 8,000 square foot zero carbon flower shaped home dug into a hillside near Bolton, complete with a ground source heat pump and a wind turbine, at a reported cost of around £8 million. Fans nicknamed it Teletubbies Towers before a single brick, or should I say a single scoop of earth, was moved. Local opposition and other business ventures got in the way, and Neville eventually sold the empty plot years later. A reminder that even the most luxurious underground homes start as just a hole in someone's imagination. The design itself was genuinely clever too. A flower-shaped layout with teardrop courtyards meant to let daylight flood every single room, despite the whole thing sitting under a hillside. Number 13. Caveland, Festus, Missouri. This one's less billionaire bunker, more family bought a literal cave off eBay. In 2003, Kurt and Deborah Sleeper picked up 3 acres in Festus, Missouri that came with an empty sandstone cave, once a roller rink that hosted acts like Bob Seger and Ted Nugent. Over several years, they hand-built a home inside it, roughly 15,000 to 17,000 square feet of naturally insulated space, with geothermal heating and zero need for a furnace or AC. It's rustic, a little eccentric, and completely one of a kind. Proof that you don't need billions, just a good eye and a very unusual real estate listing. Because the sandstone walls naturally shed sand, the family even rigged up little interior roofs over the kitchen just to keep dinner grit-free. Number 14. Vivos X Point, South Dakota. This is the biggest underground residential community on the planet, full stop. Near the Black Hills, a former U.S. Army munitions depot called Fort Igloo, used from 1942 to 1967, was converted into Vivos X Point. 575 individual concrete bunkers spread across roughly 18 square miles, each around 2,200 square feet, and built to handle a 500,000-pound internal blast. Residents can add geothermal heating, solar power, and personalize the interiors into full homes. It's marketed with a general store, gym, and medical clinic in the plants. Worth noting, recent reporting shows the site has faced lawsuits from residents over unfinished amenities. So, like any huge development, the reality is still catching up to the pitch. 15. Vivos, Indiana. Less famous than its European and South Dakota siblings, but just as real, Vivos also runs a fully outfitted 10,000 square foot underground shelter in Indiana, built for a co-ownership group of around 80 people. It's fully stocked and activation ready, essentially a shared underground home designed to go from empty to occupied within hours if needed. 3 very different Vivos projects, 3 very different scales, one very consistent idea: hide the wealthy underground in comfort. 16. The cave houses of Guadix, Spain. In the Granada province of Spain sits Guadix, home to the largest concentration of inhabited cave homes in all of Europe, somewhere around 2,000 of them in a district called Barrio de las Cuevas. Some date back to the 15th and 16th centuries when Moors displaced during the Reconquista carved homes straight into the soft rock. What's wild is the temperature, a constant 18 to 20 degrees Celsius all year, no heating or AC bills. Today, many have been fully modernized with electricity, Wi-Fi, and even private pools, and a good number operate as boutique cave hotels for tourists who want a taste of troglodyte living without giving up their creature comforts. Some families have passed the exact same cave down for generations, quietly expanding it room by room the way you'd renovate any other house. 17. Setenil de las Bodegas, Spain. Not far from Guadix, in the Cadiz province, is a town that took underground sideways instead of down. Setenil de las Bodegas has houses, bars, and restaurants built directly beneath massive overhanging cliffs. You can genuinely reach up and touch solid stone while eating breakfast on a terrace. The Guadalporcun River carved this gorge out over thousands of years, and locals simply built 3 walls instead of 4, letting the cliff serve as the roof. The name literally traces back to Latin for 7 times nothing, referencing 7 failed Christian sieges before the town finally fell in 1484. Equal parts history lesson and architectural marvel. Kandivin, Iran. This might be the most alien-looking entry on this list. In East Azerbaijan province near Tabriz, the village of Kandivin is built into cone-shaped rock formations formed from the ancient eruptions of Mount Sahand. Locals call the individual dwellings Karan. Some of these cone homes reach up to 40 meters tall and have been inhabited for centuries, with residents tracing their roots back roughly 700 years to families who fled the Mongol invasions. From a distance, the whole village looks like a giant termite colony, but step inside and you'll find multi-story homes with modern water, gas, and electricity, naturally insulated year-round by the porous volcanic rock. It's regularly compared to Cappadocia in Turkey, except far fewer tourists even know it exists, which honestly makes it feel even more like a discovery. The Sassi di Matera, Italy. Matera in southern Italy is one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements on Earth, and its Sassi districts, thousands of homes carved into limestone, were actually considered a national shame in the mid-20th century, so poor and cramped that the government forcibly relocated residents in the 1950s. Fast forward to today, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site that's been completely reinvented as luxury cave hospitality. Hotels like Sextantio Le Grotte della Civita, Aquatio Cave Luxury Spa, and the newer five-star Vetera Matera have transformed these same ancient dwellings into rooms with vaulted stone ceilings, carved rock spas, and panoramic terraces, from shame of the nation to five-star Relais and Chateau. Even the spa treatments happen inside restored stables and ancient cisterns, so the wellness experience is as historic as the walls around you. 20. Museum Hotel, Cappadocia, Turkey. Beneath Uchisar Castle, the highest point in Cappadocia, sits a cave hotel that's less rustic getaway and more actual museum. The owner filled the property with genuine antiques from the Ottoman, Seljuk, Roman, and Hittite periods, decorating each of its 30 rooms and suites carved from centuries-old caves and stone ruins with pieces you'd expect behind glass, not next to your bed. It's the only hotel in Turkey admitted into the exclusive Relais and Chateau collection. With 270-degree views over the valley, you get sunrise and sunset from the same cave. Cappadocia's whole region sits on volcanic tuff, which is exactly why carving into it has worked for thousands of years. Some suites here even come with hot tubs carved straight out of the same stone as the walls around them. 21. Santorini's Yiposkafa Cave Houses, Greece. On the Greek island of Santorini, the traditional cave homes are called yiposkafa, meaning literally dug into rock. They started as humble dwellings for poor sailors who couldn't afford the grand captain's mansions above, carved into soft volcanic tuff with no foundations, barrel-shaped ceilings, and tiny front-facing windows. Starting in the 1980s, islanders began transforming these same modest caves into boutique hotels, and today the villages of Oya, Imerovigli, and Fira are full of what were once storage caves and donkey stables, now reborn as suites with infinity pools staring straight out over the caldera. It's one of the clearest glow-ups on this entire list. Poverty architecture turned five-star fantasy.
22. Yaodong Cave Dwellings, China. This is easily the largest-scale underground living arrangement on Earth. Across China's lowest plateau, spanning provinces like Shanxi, Gansu, and Henan, an estimated 40 million people still live in yaodong, or cave dwellings, carved into cliffs or dug around sunken courtyards, some of them dating back over 4,000 years to the Bronze Age. Chairman Mao himself lived in Yaodong caves in Yan'an during the 1930s and 40s while leading the communist forces. And this isn't just historical. Award-winning modern projects have built over 1,000 new energy-efficient Yaodong-style homes using solar power and natural ventilation, plus hotels based on the same design. 40 million people. Let that sink in. That's not a niche lifestyle trend. That's a nation's worth of people who never left the underground housing their ancestors perfected thousands of years ago and are now upgrading it with solar panels instead of abandoning it. Chulo Canyon Cave House, Bisbee, Arizona.
Back in 1984, Randy and Kathy Clark had land in Arizona's Mule Mountains too steep to build a normal house on, so a neighbor, who happened to be a mining engineer, offered to blast a hole into the rock instead. A year and a half of dynamite later, they had the foundation for a nearly 3,000 square foot home carved right into the mountainside. 3 bedrooms, a library, all entered through what looks like a modest little sunroom that opens into a sprawling cavern. It now rents out to guests for well over $1,000 a night, with natural pools on the hillside and year-round cool temperatures. Not bad for a house that started as an accident of geography. 24. Beckham Creek Cave Lodge, Arkansas. In the Ozark Hills of Newton County, Arkansas, there's a real living cave that a co-founder of Celestial Seasonings Tea bought back in the 80s and turned it into a proper home. Today, Beckham Creek Cave Lodge is 5,800 square feet, 4 bedrooms, each with their own bathroom, a gourmet kitchen, and, this is the best part, a genuine natural waterfall formation called the Spanish Piano, flowing right through the living room next to the couch. The cave stays around 65 degrees year-round no matter the season. It's featured on Netflix, sits on 256 private acres, and the whole property rents out as a single luxury buyout. Jesse James allegedly used a cave in the same county to hide out in the 1800s. This one's a lot more comfortable. Guests get a guided tour deep into the cave system behind the home, plus a UTV ride around the surrounding acreage, so it's less hotel stay and more temporary underground estate. Number 25. The Residencia, Paranal Observatory, Chile. Our final stop isn't a private mansion, it's arguably the most exclusive shared home on the planet. High in Chile's Atacama Desert at 2,400 meters elevation, the European Southern Observatory built the Residencia to house the astronomers and engineers who work at the Very Large Telescope. Designed by architects Auer and Weber, this roughly 10,000 square meter structure is built into a natural depression in the desert and topped by a 35-meter dome sheltering an actual tropical garden and swimming pool, all surrounded by 108 rooms. It won architecture awards in 2004 and 2005, and then got globally famous when it appeared as the villain's lair in the James Bond film Quantum of Solace. You genuinely cannot book a room here. It's reserved strictly for ESO staff, which honestly makes it the most exclusive underground address on this entire list. No amount of money gets you a booking. Only a job studying the stars does.